Before we get started, I want to make sure everybody knows that this is not a Jordan Peterson podcast. This is a Fireforge Leader podcast, but we're going to be analyzing some Jordan Peterson messages today.
Part of spiritual development is to recognize the satanic tendencies that characterize you and to fully wrestle with them and to integrate them. That's the thing. It's not so much to cast them away, it's to transmute them. And you can see the difference between people who've done that and people who haven't, at least to some degree, because people who haven't integrated the shadow at all are naive. And you can tell that when you look at them, and you can tell that when you talk to them. And because they're naive, they're often resentful as well because they get taken advantage of. And someone who's integrated that more, they're dangerous in the martial arts sort of way, which is they're dangerous, but they don't have to use it because their presence radiates implicit potential for havoc. And that's really necessary. It's one of the things that gives people self-respect. If you're harmless, you're not virtuous. You're just harmless. You're like a rabbit. A rabbit isn't virtuous. It just can't do anything except get eaten. It's not virtuous. If you're a monster and you don't act monstrously, then you're virtuous. But you also have to be a monster. Well, you see this all the time. Harry Potter's like that too. It's like he's flawed, he's hurt, he's got evil in him. He can talk to snakes, man. He breaks rules all the time. All the time. He's not obedient at all. But, he has a good reason for breaking the rules. And if he couldn't break the rules, him and his little clique of rule-breaking, troublemakers, if they didn't break the rules, they wouldn't attain the highest goal. So it's very peculiar, but it's a very, 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 very common mythological notion. The hero has to be a monster. But a controlled monster. Batman is like that, it's everywhere. It's the storyline is here. If you're going to be a leader, you have to
Leaders are not born in a womb. They are forged through heat, pressure, and a whole lot of sweat. The Fireforge Leader podcast serves the audience through exploring leadership at work, in the community, and with the family, using a practical perspective and real-life experiences from the host, Steve Baumgartner, and his guests in the Forge. Now, it's time to enter the Forge with the Fireforged Leader.
What is up, leaders? Here we are again. And I don't know if you guys listen to Jordan Peterson at all, but every time that he gets into something like this, I just get shivers down my spine. You don't have to agree with him. You don't have to agree with his philosophies, whatever. Let's leave all that political crap in the background. And let's just walk right into another Fireforge Leader podcast where I, Steve Baumgartner, are going to be taking you on a journey of the Forge, discussing lessons learned on the front lines of leadership. So this episode's a bit different today, right? We started off with a Jordan Peterson clip. It might have made you a little bit edgy, to be honest with you. But I'm going to get a little bit deep into this topic today because this topic really, really hits home for me. It's going to be a little bit more raw today because really I'm going without a script. I got a few bullet points that I want to talk about, but overall, it's just going to be straight from the heart today. Not that any other episode is any less from the heart. It's just less prepared. I just want it to be more natural. So I was listening to this the other day, and I'm going to tell you, I played it about 10, 12 times over and over because it made such an impact on me. So I want to start off a little bit with just dissecting what Jordan said in here. So right out of the gate, Jordan talks about understanding our satanic tendencies. Whew! That's some strong words. Satanic tendencies. All right. So I'm sure that in everybody's mind, it's happening in my mind as well. we want to tone that language down, right? But let's not do that. All right. Even though it's hard to hear, each one of us has something inside of us that leads us to sin or leads us to something that we don't like, what have you. I'm not saying that you got to be Christian, whatever, but let's just say that automatically our human tendency is to wash away all that bad. But let's just stop for a second. Let's take a look at that bad, right? Let's take a look at those traits that we don't like in ourselves, right? It's okay. It's okay to analyze these. I'm giving you permission right now, like you ever needed it. All right, so let's just take those tendencies and put them out in front of our face. Look, we got to look them dead in the eyes. All right. So the next thing that he talks about is that we really need to wrestle with these satanic tendencies, these tendencies for things that we don't like, right? So let's talk about wrestling a little bit. So wrestling is not something that we shy away from, right? If we're wrestling, we don't shy away from our opponent. We don't run around the mat. What we do is we lock up with our opponent and we get in this intense struggle, right? And what we're doing is we're trying to win. We're trying to pin it. We're in this fight of our lives, right? So it's not, we're wrestling with it. No, it's lock up with those tendencies. Don't shy away from them. Look them dead in the eyes and want to take them down. The next part's probably the hardest, right? And in my Christian mind, I don't even want to acknowledge this part, right? But it's to integrate these satanic tendencies, he calls them, into myself. So I had to really cut this thing apart and digest it for a bit. But I don't think Jordan means that we should succumb to our satanic tendencies or let them overtake us, right? Really, what I think he's saying is that we need to respect them, but we need to respect them in a manner that we become their master. And he even uses this terminology when he says we need to transmute them, right? And if you look up transmute, what it means is it means to change in form or to change in nature or substance, right? So we're going to integrate these behaviors within us, and then we're going to change them into something else. And it really reminds me of this old guy that I was talking to. I was completely amazed after he gave a talk in front of a couples group one time. And he was talking about virtues and different things. And Jordan also mentions virtue, which I'll get to later. But he took these same steps, right? To become where he was in life, he had to understand himself. He had to wrestle with those things. He had to make them habit. He integrated them into their lives to change them and transmute them into something else, changed them into habits, and then finally ended up at virtue. But going back to what Jordan was saying, the last thing that he mentioned was that once that we integrate them, after wrestling with them, what we can do is we can finally control these tendencies, right? And he mentions a couple other things in there, like we become dangerous. And people think of danger and they think of fire and whatever else. But the thing is we become dangerous without the intent to have to use it. And it reminds me of an old quote by Miyamoto Musashi. Sorry, I probably slaughtered that. But he states, "It is better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in a war." So we're going to have this power inside of inside of us. We're going to have this monster inside of us that's on a leash, right? It kind of reminds me of a police dog, totally controlled, doing everything that we ask it to do as its owner until we give the command to take down the criminal. So he also goes on to really state that when you possess this strength, right, and you don't have to use it, that you build up this tremendous amount of self-respect. On the other side of that, when you don't have that monster within you don't know what you're capable of, or you're scared to let that portion of yourself be seen, you get taken advantage of. And then he goes on to say that there's nothing virtuous about a rabbit. A rabbit is just a rabbit. The only thing that it can do is run around and try not to be eaten. However, when you are a monster and you understand that you're a monster and you choose to control that you're a monster, you control those tendencies, that's when it becomes virtuous. There's probably a whole lot of people right now disagreeing with what I'm saying. And that's all right. You have the right to your opinion. However, I want to challenge you a little bit. Is the reason that you're thinking that right now because you really don't believe what I'm saying or believe what Jordan's saying? Or is it because society has tamed you down that much to make you believe that you are supposed to be weak to be good? All right. So I want to tell you a story about this gentleman that I met for the first time. I had seen him a couple times at jiu-jitsu, but he told me the other day as we're just sitting there talking, as our kids are out on the mat, he goes, I've been doing this for about 2 years. And I noticed that you just started coming to this gym. And I was just wondering, did you feel like you needed to say sorry every time that you took someone down? You did a sweep, you put someone in an arm bar, whatever else. And we had a little bit of conversation around that. But then he went on to tell me, and it's amazing how much this gentleman opened up to me. But he went on to tell me that he, within the last 2 years, he's really come to realize that society has totally castrated him. Since he started going over these couple of years, right? He's been more confident. People respect him more. He's definitely a lot more successful out in society and in his job. And it really just came through going to jiu-jitsu because he's understanding what really lives within him. He knows what he's capable of. So it's funny because, people come into our lives for different reason. And I think the reason why he decided to talk to me that day was because we were supposed to connect on this point, right? It was the exact same day, maybe the day after, I can't really remember, that I listened to this Jordan Peterson thing and had done so much reflection on it. So I told him about this message, right? About being this monster and then learning how to control it. And I also sent him a link to it after. But he's like, wow, right on, man. That's exactly it. That just nailed that feeling that I've been feeling since I've been in jiu-jitsu. So it was just confirmation for me of, this whole, what I had been feeling about this message that Jordan had put out. But going back to myself a little bit here, it really hit me hard because you guys have listened to my past. I have a big old monster that lives inside me. I was an abusive father. I was a shit husband. I'm not gonna hold anything back there, right? I was a drug addict. I was a drug dealer. I did a lot of bad things in my life, right? And the weird thing about it is that I used to hide that monster away from the world, right? I used to not tell people about it. I used to not share it with people. And as I did that, as I was ashamed of what was inside of me, my life just kind of teetered in a balance, or it even backslid at different points. Now, since I've shown my scars, I've shown that monster of who I was and the controls that I put in place and who I am now. It's given me a ton of power in my life. It's what allows me to do this podcast and get these leadership lessons out to everybody and, connect with people and really, really understand where people are coming from. But on the other side, people are drawn to me because of that story, right? They're inspired by it. They love that overcomer type story. We see it in the movies all the time, and Jordan touches on this as well, right? He touches on Harry Potter, but I'm not going to talk about Harry Potter. But look at almost every superhero out there. They weren't this virtuous, person to start off with, They have a background. They came from some sort of moment in their life. Um, there's a lot of movies out there that talk about it, people in the Bible, you know, there are tons of sinners in the Bible who have overcome. Every saint story out there is a sinner who overcame. So I've really taken that monstrous side of myself, right? Those tendencies and that control that I put around those tendencies. And I look at my past now as an asset and really a superpower in most situations, right? So I implore you today, don't hide that from people. Control it and share it. All right, so that's great, Steve. Nice story, what have you. So what do we do with this information? You didn't think you were going to get to leave without telling you a few points to work on, right? So I'm going to take this down two different roads, right? The first one is if you have a monster inside you today, or if you've already worked through those tendencies, right? Follow Jordan's path. All right. Understand those tendencies. You don't have to call them satanic, but points in your life that you don't like about yourself, right? Are you a workaholic? Do you not treat your family right? Do you obsess over things? Are you more devoted to work than you are to your home life? Do you cheat? Do you lie? Do you steal? I don't care what it is. Is there something that you don't like about yourself today or your past? Then you need to wrestle with those things, right? So let's talk about a couple of those things. If it's anger that you suffer from, right? That's not a good thing if you're angry all the time. You need to actively fight that tendency to lash out at others. Porn addiction is rampant throughout the world today. it affects a ton of marriages. Whether you want to believe it or not, it does. The statistics are there. You can make all sorts of excuses, but it's a problem. So if you have porn addiction, it's affecting your marriage, right? Use technology to help you out. Find a counselor. Determine what stressors bring you there. Most people that I know that have wrestled with porn addiction, it's generally stress that leads a man to porn addiction. I'm not sure what it's like for ladies. I don't share that kind of information because I'm a happily married man. But whatever it is, fight it, wrestle with it, look it in the eyes, lock arms with it, take it down to the mat and pin it. Next thing is integrate those things into your own being, right? Don't lock them in a cage. Don't hide them from the world to see. They're part of you. Embrace that they're part of you. But you need to transmute them, right? So you look at any 12-step program out there. I believe it's the first step that tells you that you need to admit what you are, right? The rest of the steps are about transmuting those things about yourself to be able to finally control it. So that's last step is control. You need to be these tendencies master. You need to only allow these things out when you want them to be let out, right? So porn addiction, you probably never want to let that thing out, right? But your anger, you may have times in your life where you need to let your anger out. So the other road is if you don't have these monsters and society has tamed you, or like my new friend said, castrated you, you need to go out and do something that unleashes that monster inside of you, right? So go out and try boxing or jujitsu or some other sort of controlled martial art, right? Get punched or elbowed in the mouth and see how you react. Train hard and understand that part of yourself, right? It makes me think of the movie. Oh, crud. I just forgot it. Had Edward Norton in it. Fight Club. Fight Club. So those people felt so alive when they were not being tamed by society anymore, right? When they were in those initial stages of just two people coming together and fighting. I'm not saying that you need to go out there and start Fight Club. I mean, I'm not against it, but no, you probably shouldn't do that. That's illegal, right? We still need to do things by the law. But go out and do something that allows you to understand what you're capable of. And then finally, share every one of your experiences, right? There's other people out there. There's hundreds, if not thousands of people who have experiences that are like yours. And even the ones who don't, I get told every time, my struggles haven't been as bad as yours, but you inspired me so much. If you can do it, I definitely can do it, right? So let me recap that for a minute. 2 roads. First one is if you have a monster inside of you today, understand those tendencies, wrestle them, pin them down to the mat, integrate those into your being, but transmute them. Finally, control. However, if society has tamed you and you don't have those monsters inside of you, go out and do something that unleashes that monster inside of you. go out there and try some sort of martial art or whatever. And then whichever road you are on, it doesn't matter. Neither one's better than the other. I want you to live. But once that you live, go out and share those experiences of how you control those things so that others can learn from you. So y'all probably noticed that I got pretty passionate about today's topic. It's just amazing. I don't listen to Jordan Peterson a lot, but this topic really captured me. So I might try and do this a little bit more in the future. Today, I want to let you know, just booked Nancy Regan. If you don't know her, you're probably not in the reliability field. Everybody in the reliability field knows Nancy. We're going to settle on a date, but she has agreed to come on the show. So that is awesome. I'll let you know more as details progress. I've also got a couple of war heroes that I'm working on. But if you appreciate what you heard here today or any other day, really, I need you to leave that rating and review. I feel like a broken record, but what it does is it helps bring us up in the charts so the message gets to more people. That's the only reason I want you to do it. It's not about my own self-gratification. It's about reaching more people and getting this message out. I believe that God has blessed me with the passion, desire, and the message to be able to do this. And I just want to fulfill that mission. So keep on coming back and just tuning in. Hit that subscribe button on whatever podcasting app you're currently listening to. Please go out and share any episode that personally touched you or you think would be good for someone else. And overall, people, just go out there and lead with intent. Do it for your family. Do it for your friends. Do it for your communities. Do it for yourself. That's all I got for today. Thank you for tuning in.
You have just experienced the heat and pressure of the Forge. Remember, words without action are meaningless. Now, after the heat of the Forge, shape your thoughts, quench your brain, then put your new tools to use, adding to your leadership. Tune in next week for more lessons from the Forge.